Hello everyone, welcome to Pre-Algebra with Miss Betsy. I'm glad that you're back along with us today. We're continuing our discussion about fractions, and if you happen to be tracking along with me, I'm using Pre-Algebra for Christian Schools. It is published by Bob Jones University Press. It's the first edition. I'm in section 6.6 where we are adding and subtracting mixed numbers. If you're not using that text, it's no big deal. You're going to add and subtract mixed numbers the same way, and perhaps this video would be helpful to you. Now, you know that I have to start with a lame joke, and I've been doing a bunch of pig jokes in my Algebra 1 class, so I think I will subject you to some of those same things. This is truly one of the lamest ones that I've seen for a while. What did Professor Hogg see when she looked through her telescope? She saw the Pig Dipper. So, let's go ahead and see what we're going to do when we add or subtract mixed numbers. If you're going to add or subtract mixed numbers with like denominators, you add or subtract the fractions, then you add or subtract the whole numbers. This is just really very straightforward. You have 1 5/6 plus 4 and 1/6. 1/6. This should still be a review of fraction work that you did a few years ago. But what you do, you add or subtract the fractions, you add or subtract the whole numbers. 5/6 plus 1/6. The denominator is the same. You add the numerator. You have 6/6. 1 plus 4 is 5. Now you might have to do some renaming, and you do here. Is it legitimate to keep 6/6? No. What is 6 over 6 equal to? It's equal to 1. So you can say is equal to 5 plus 1 is equal to 6. This is how they're showing you to stretch it out across to the right-hand side in your book, and I'm all right with that. Okay? You're just simply adding together two mixed numbers. So let's do another one now. This time we're going to subtract. We have 3 8/9, and from that we are going to subtract 2 2/9. Our denominators are the same. We can simply subtract the numerators. We have 6/9. 3 minus 2 is 1. Is this an acceptable answer? No, because our 6/9 has not been reduced to the lowest term. So when we divide both the numerator and the denominator by 3, we end up with 1 2/3 as our solution. So it's all just very straightforward, exactly as you would expect it to be. Now, however, let's say that we want to add together two numbers that do not have the same denominator. What are you going to do? For example, this is example 1 on page 197. We have 7 5/8 plus 2 3/4. Can you add those fractions together? No, because to compare or combine, they have to be the same type, they have to be the same kind, have to have the same denominator. So we have to look at this and think, okay, what's my least common denominator? My lowest common denominator, well, with an 8 and a 4, your LCD is going to be equal to 8. So first, when we're adding mixed numbers, we want to add those vertically. 7 5/8 plus 2 3/4. And we just finished saying that we can't add those yet because we don't have a common denominator, but we saw that our common denominator is going to be 8. So we're going to rename both of these fractions with a common denominator. How do you write 3/4 with a denominator of 8? Well, you multiply the numerator and the denominator by 2. So 3/4 is the same as 6/8. Now we can add our add our fractions, add our whole numbers. 5 plus 6 is 11/8. 7 plus 2 is equal to 9. So we end up with a solution of 9 and 11/8. Does that work? No. If you're doing a mixed number, you can't have an improper fraction. So we have to rename our 11/8 as an improper fraction. If you don't remember how to do this, or if you can't look at this and say that 11/8 is 1 and 3/8, you take 11, take the numerator, divide it by the denominator. How many 8s are there in 11? There's 1. 1 times 8 is 8. 11 minus 8 is 3. And you take the remainder, and that becomes the numerator of the fraction. So 11/8 is equal to 1 and 3/8. So we say that this is equal to 9 plus 1 and 3/8 or 10 and 3/8. This is how you add together two fractions that do not have a common denominator. First, you rename them with a common denominator. Then you make sure that if you have an improper fraction over here, you continue to add together. We've added the whole numbers together to get 10, and then the fraction here is 3/8. So let's go ahead and do another one very quickly. Three fractions, three mixed numbers that we're going to add, and my goodness, I did a poor job of erasing this. 6 2/3 plus 3 1/4 plus 2 5/6. We need a common denominator for 3, 4, and 6. Our common denominator is going to be 12. So we need to rewrite each of these mixed numbers so the fraction has a denominator of 12. How did we get from 3 to 12? 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 1/4. How do we get from 4 to 12? 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 3 is... So we're going to multiply the numerator by 3. Multiply the numerator by 3 because we multiply the denominator by 3. Here we have to multiply the denominator and the numerator by 2. And we end up with 2 and 10 over 12. Now we can add our numerators because we have a common denominator, correct? 8 plus 3 is 11, plus 10 is 21 over 12. 6 plus 3 is 9, plus 2 is 11. What has happened when we've added our fractions and our whole numbers? Well, we've ended up with something we know that is clearly incorrect, so we're going to have to rename this. What is 21/12 as a mixed number? You divide 21 by 12 one time. We subtract 12 from 9, and we rename that so that the remainder is the numerator.
The library will be closing in 30 minutes.
The divisor is the denominator. So that's 1 and 9/12. So this becomes 11 plus 1 and 9/12. Can you even see that clear over there? You can't. Let me pull it back to this side, kids. Sorry about that. Need eyes out of the back of my head. So that's 11 plus 1 and 9/12. It's 12 and 9/12. And then you have to reduce this to lowest terms, don't you? What is 9/12? 9/12 is 3/4. So your solution becomes 12 and 3/4. Now let me see if this actually, the camera doesn't do a good job for me here. Yes, this is reduced to lowest terms. We found the common denominator of 12. We added the fractions, 21/12. We rewrote that as a mixed number, added the whole number parts to get 12, and 9/12, which we reduced to lowest terms. That's what you have to do when you're adding mixed numbers. Now, if you're going to subtract mixed numbers, what do you think you might have to do? Well, sometimes when you're subtracting, frequently when you're subtracting whole numbers, you have to borrow, don't you? Well, you have to do the same thing frequently when you are subtracting mixed numbers. Let's say that we have 6 minus 3 and 5/8. Do you remember what to do with this from before? Well, let me go ahead and pull this. What if we had 60 minus 35? Can you subtract 5 from 0? No. So you borrowed a 10, that became 50, and now all of a sudden you have 10 units. 10 minus 5 is 5. We're using the same principle when we are subtracting these fractions. So we're going to rename so that we have some eighths over here that we can subtract. How would you rename 6? Well, that would be 5 and 8/8. If you have 8/8, you've got a whole pie that's cut up into 8 pieces, don't you? So 6 is the same as 5 and 8/8 minus 3 and 5/8. And now you can correctly subtract. 8 minus 5 is 3/8. 5 minus 3 is 2. And that's what you do if you're going to subtract mixed numbers. Now let's go ahead and do another one where we need to rename. Say that we have 5 1/4 minus 2 2/3. Different denominators now. You're going to have to rename them. What's a common denominator of 3 and 4? It's 12, isn't it? So this becomes 5 and 3/12, 2 and 8/12. This is not a video where I'm spending time showing the conversion. Now, can we subtract 8 from 3? No, we have to borrow. So when we borrow, what does this become? 4. Let me see how I want to do this. Becomes 4 and 3/12 plus 12/12. Does that make sense to you? You see what I did? I borrowed 1, which took it down to 4 and 3/12. And I borrowed that as 12/12. And I still have 2 and 8/12 down here in the denominator. Okay? 2 and 8/12 down here that I'm going to subtract. I'm running out of space going across the board this way. So what I'm going to do now is take this piece of the puzzle that we're working on, bring it down below. 4 3/12 plus 12/12, that becomes 4 and 15/12, doesn't it? Minus 2 and 8/12, and now we can subtract, and we see that our answer is 2 and 7/12. That's really all that's involved in subtracting mixed numbers. Now, as far as when you get to something that you need to reduce to lowest terms, you can reduce to lowest terms before or after you add or subtract, whatever works most conveniently for you. That's the end of section 6.6, and I'll see you next time.